All right. Well, welcome back, guys, to a rare second episode of Rivian Stories in the same week. And thanks, Sapan and Rashad, for coming back again to talk with us about R3. We ended up. I was actually hoping that we might be able to get to it last time we recorded, but we went a little long. We got a little bit excited about R2, so now it's time to get excited about R3. And once again, I want you guys to kick it off because you were there at the reveal, actually saw it in person, which I have not. I've only seen pictures. So give us impressions, thoughts. Sapan, I know that you have some strong feelings about the form factor and the driving experience. So yeah, start wherever you guys like.
Okay, so I'll let's do this. I'll have Rashad. He can talk about R3, and then I can talk about R3X because I think we're both equally, geared towards those two things, right?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, as you guys saw on the reveal itself, it was stunning. It was a stunner. It was a shocker when he hit the apple, and then there's more type of move. And I don't think anyone was prepared for that. And so when R3 came out, for me, I thought that R2 was R3, right? In the sense of like size and deference between the R1. Because if you saw from the previous video, I said that I thought that the R2 seemed a little big because of its stature and the way it was shaped. So when I saw the R3, and mind you, when we saw it, we only saw it from the front because it's coming towards us. So we had no idea or concept onto its true size until he'd actually parked it in an angle where we could see it. So when I saw that, I said, "Oh wow, this is amazing." And the crowd was going nuts. People were talking to each other, didn't know what was going on, and it was a complete pandemonium in our seats, right? And so I literally was I guess the best word is dumbfounded that they had produced a third variant, and the color was exceptional. It's a new color, another new color that they have anticipated for the new series. But what took my breath away was the sport hatchback aspect of it. Because when I'm looking at this as a replacement maybe for my EQS, right? So the big selling point with the EQS that my wife loved is the fact that it had a very high sport hatchback for loading if you so needed to, and just overall rear clearance. And so when I saw that, it was hard to tell until RJ opened the rear latch. And when that bad boy came up that high, done. I mean, I was like, that is just phenomenal. And then, of course, then when he had it closed, you can also open just the glass. So it had the versatility that made that vehicle, although smaller in stature, even more usable in as far as storage and what you can do with it. And so that took my breath away. Plus, the charge port was at the behind the pillar, upper level on the right. The way it sat was amazing. And what took my breath away also was the detail and depth of the Rivian logo and badging in the rear. It was different. It was so diverse. And, we saw sample, and I didn't want to say this earlier, but we saw renderings. If you remember when we were going back to the renderings that people were putting out last year on R2, it kind of gave me that type of vibe. But the fact that that light bar was still signature, it was still there. But when you really look at the Rivian badge, it was like three-dimensional and it was thick. I mean, it looked like it was indented into the rear and it came out in a very modern, futuristic way. I was dumbfounded. I was dumbfounded, and so that had me. And I'm literally looking left, looking right. Like, I mean, this is it. This is a rally style. It's lower clearance. It gives the people who kind of want a sedan, but don't want a sedan, but don't want an SUV. That crossover, bang, that took me. And then the 3X came out, and I kind of like had a heart murmur. Just my heart just kind of moved. I said, I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But pass it over to Sapan so we can talk about the R3X.
So R3X, right? So, let's talk about R3 in general because R3 is as I mentioned last time, that's going to be the European entry, right? It's a small
Okay.
sport hatchback. along with R2, right? They're going after, you know, the SUV crowd, and then the people who don't want a big SUV. So it's going to be their, both R2 and R3 are going to be their European entry. But R3X, I think, is going to be the one that gets those, ICE enthusiasts excited. And I know personally several people, who don't give two craps about EVs, right? They don't like EVs. They don't care about them because they're so passionate about their cars, their ICE cars. And they said, this is beautiful. And it's because, talking with Jeff Hammond at the show, at the unveiling, their design language was, Lancia, Delta Integrale, Audi, S1 Group B Rally, all those heritage Group B Rally cars. They had that on their design board when they were designing the R3 and R3X. And, if it's going to be as good as the way it looks, half as good as the way it looks, it's going to really get those ICE enthusiasts to leave, the ICE world and go with R3X. So I think I was just shocked, right? I literally looked at it and I was like, I want that, if it sounds the way I think it's going to sound, which, I sent that clip earlier, right? That Mustang, the Ken Block whine from that Mustang, if it just even has a little bit of that sound, right? That mechanical, electric motor whine, I think it'll really drive those enthusiasts crazy enough to like put their money where their mouth is and say, I want that. I was telling Rashad the whole time, I'll trade my Alpha in for that. If it, again, looks and sounds the way I think it's going to, and handles and performs. I mean, tri-motor variant, 0 to 60 less than 3 seconds. They're going to have proper suspension. I'm excited. And that's just because we were there. We were talking with Jeff. I talked with Max Kaufman, who's their, test driver, their suspension guru. I mean, yeah, I'm excited. I can't say more than that. It just puts a smile on my face, and then looking at it, and I think it's going to be good.
And I spoke with Brian Getz. We had a lot of conversations, and what I noticed about just the finishes, right? The interior, the materials, they're definitely high end plush. I would have never guessed that you're going to look at those materials in the R3 and expect a vehicle that's south of $40,000 or $45,000, whatever that price point is going to be. I think they're saying it's about a $5,000 delta between the R3 and the and the R2. But I can tell you those design attributes, the stitching alone in the R3X, and I say that because it was different from the R3. The seating style, you may have seen some pictures where you start to see like a mesh woven in the center sections of the seating. It was different. It was fun, and I think I'm an aesthetic guy. So when I saw the multi-tone, the two-tone with the side mirrors being that red, it's more, I don't want to call it red, it's more like a sunburst orange to match some of those points in the other aspects of the vehicle. Oh man, it gave me that Mini Cooper sport type of look to it. And I thought that was a really edgy decision that paid off when they made that. And the only thing I want to say also is, like, a lot of people want to know, how in the world did they keep R3 out of not only media, but even the employees didn't know? So I had to ask the question. I was talking to Brian. I said, Brian, how did you pull that off? I mean, I get, is it true that no employees knew that R3 even existed? Is that just like, you're just saying that, or is that true? He said, no one knew. So what happened was, it was a team of 20 people, and they used a third-party vendor, if you will, that helped assemble it, and they assembled it off-site. So a separate location. It wasn't done in like Normal or any other location. It was an independent site, and it was over the last, I think they said 8 to 9 months putting that together. And people want to ask, was it functional? Yes, it was a functional vehicle. Both of them were. Like they were driving them around Laguna Beach the next day. So it's not like it was just that they rolled it. I think someone said, hey, did they kind of like come out on a pulley? Was it really up? No, these things were actually running vehicles. The UI was incredible. I mean, there's nothing else I can say. The R3X was a hot ticket. And everybody, I want to say, if I could put a percentage to it, when R3 and R3X came out, I want to say 65% of the crowd that was there was surrounding the the R3 and R3X. Like it because I think that the R2s, like they see it, they got it, right? It's a smaller version of R1. But when they saw that, all the attention went to R3 and R3X.
Yeah, talking to Ryan and Scott and Bruce, who were all there, they all said the same thing. Like R2 was cool, but R3 and R3X stole the show. Like the amount of press that was around those vehicles, the amount of you guys that were around those vehicles. Yeah, R2 was like, "Hey guys, I'm over here," like because everybody flocked to the R3 and R3X.
Now here's a question I have. And I'm gonna bring this to the group. Does it help or does it hurt? R2. That's the question I have, because for those people, until you see, I think they have to see the R2. R2 is a piece of machinery. It is nice. It is really nice. I think the R3, if you want a crossover, let me not use the word crossover. If you want an SUV that's not a 7-row, if you want I think Scott, you said a Cherokee, a Grand Cherokee, or if you want an Explorer, or in that category, R2 all day. R2 all day. But if you want something that's kind of more like, I don't know, sportier, small, can in city, urban environments, and can go off road and can do that 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, that R3 is it. But my concern is, because of that attention, now you have people. I can't tell you how many people said, okay, so is the R2 that we placed the order for, can we move that to an R3? Like, those conversations were happening in real time.
Yeah. Those timelines, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think the timelines will help them. I think unless you're on the back end of that, unless you pre-ordered, a year from now.
Yeah.
And then you bump your delivery bumps right up against like R3 happening, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
And
I think it's going to be a very particular. I know our fans love when we say use case, but I think the R3 is going to have a very particular use case compared to R2.
I don't. And honestly, Rashad, that's a great question, because when you reveal multiple things, people normally pick one, right? It's not, hey, I want both of these. It's like one or the other. We don't know when R3 and R3X will be out. But what I will say, I don't think Rivian's going to have any trouble selling as many R2s or as many R3, R3Xs as they can make. So I don't feel like it will be a problem. I think Tesla needs to worry about R2 and R3 for that matter, but I don't feel like showing both of them and R3 getting a lot of attention, I don't think that's going to hurt Rivian whatsoever, just because of the gap in the market. And I feel like there's a ton of demand in that R2 space. So I'm not worried about that.
No, that's good. That's a good point. I think it's also, when you say use case, Jimmy, I feel you on that, because I'll use my use case. I'm always an SUV sedan combo. And I was even talking to Sapan about this at the reveal. I even was talking to Kim Java. She was, she did her podcast and reporting. And I asked her as a mom, I said, so what is your? I asked her a question. If you had the opportunity and you already have an R1S in your stable, what would you pick between an R2 and an R3? And I was challenged. I'm still challenged, right? And they were like, well, listen, if you have the big boy, I wouldn't necessarily see a big dynamic. If you're trying to replace a sedan in your stable, you're probably leaning more towards an R3 than you are an R2. And I said, And I said, well, why is that? She said, well, because if you're having kids, right, I can see the R2 because of the spatial that you need for like car seats and stuff like that, despite that you're a 5-seater. Whereas with the R3, it's going to be a little bit more constrained, but it's closer to, it's a true crossover and it's sporty. So if you like the SUV vibe, but in a compact package, but yet because of the versatility of the design of the R3 with its storage capabilities and all of that, then I can't see the need of having a 1 and a 2 versus a 1 and a 3. And I said, and I took that as a grain of salt. And I'm still on the fence. I mean, I still have my R2 in order it, but it's the use case, right? What is what we need best? And I think that a lot of people are going to ask that question, especially with the promotions that are going out now about, hey, R1 owners, you get front of line priority for R2. Now, if you have an R1T, I think it's an easier decision. But I'm curious, if you have an R1S, what does that look like? And I'm going to pass that over to you, Scholar, since you have an R1S. And I'm passing that over to you, Sapan, also who has an R1S. What your thought is?
Yeah, no, I totally get that perspective. I will tell you, I don't have the nostalgia that I've been blown away by how many people just love the hatchback look. I mean, that's never been my thing. Sapan listed off all these rally cars where I was thinking like Gremlin, Yugo, Chevette, which is completely different ballpark, right? But anyway, so I'm team R2 all the way, just because it is everything that I need in an SUV except for a third row, which the R1S is the first third row SUV that we have had as a family, but now I really, really appreciate it. So I would see R2 being, I mean, for me, a family capable vehicle, but not full blown R1S. So I would see whoever's not hauling around the most kids and their friends taking the R2, and the other parent taking the R1 when they need to haul around more people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I know we're kind of delving into talking more about the R2 than we are about the R3 now, but I think that's one of the drawbacks that Nikki had over the R1 was that rear seat would always be folded down because we would never use it, maybe once or twice a year if we had all my brothers and sisters or we were down with my family and all my brothers and sisters were in town. But then we've got my parents' R1S, that we would throw everybody in anyways. So we've always had, I guess, well, not always, probably for the last almost 10 years, we've had a crossover of some sort. Mostly Nissans, because I'm still a Nissan fanboy, but I was very much more of a Nissan fanboy then than I am now. So between the Muranos, that kind of thing. So that kind of fits that bill. I just can't see, because there's a potential to go in car camp in an R2, in the amount of stuff that we bring, because we borderline prep when we camp, like prepper, not I mean, we prep to camp obviously, but like
they have so much gear, much gear.
But I mean, like, I don't want to say that we use all of it, but we use everything we bring has a purpose. But anyways, we wouldn't be able to do that in R3. Like, I mean, I'm sure it'll be a blast to drive. I'm sure it'd be a blast to wheel, especially the R3X, with its wider stance, bigger tires, everything else that car has over the R3. But yeah, just not for us. At least not at this moment.
See, I really, really, really want to drive an R3X, and I want to do it on dirt, but it's not something that I would personally own, I don't think. But I mean, one of the most fun cars that I've ever driven, both on road and off road. And Sapan, I think you mentioned one the other day, but Subaru WRX STI, those were cool, fun, great handling little cars, or are, I guess, still. I haven't driven one in a while, but anyway, I mean, and I see R3X being fun in that same way, if not more so, because it's going to have a whole heck of a lot more power.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about head gaskets, right? So
That
for
too.
those for you Subaru folks, I used to own a 8.6, so I know the boxer engines how they can be. Same size and form factor as a WRX STI hatch. Like when I was looking at it, it reminded me of that, but it also reminded me of those old school Group B rally cars. So getting back to Rashad's comment statement, I like a fun car and I like a daily family car, and that fits my perfect use case scenario because right now I have a 4-door sports sedan Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, and that's my fun car. But it's also I can haul 4 people in it, including a kid if I need to, and this seems like a very good viable replacement because it's the same thing. I can haul 4 people, but I can go hoon it on the track if I want to. I can take it to my local rally if I'm allowed. There's been a recent ban on electric vehicles, at least locally. I could probably go further out and find something, but it looks like this is going to be that car for those folks who have fun cars and who just want a modern day equivalent, the enthusiast. And that's why I had a lot of people reach out to me and say, this is cool, this is really cool. And again, these are people who don't care about electric cars, and to get that kind of target audience, I mean, come on, that's pretty solid.
I will say this too about your Alpha. I bet the R3X is probably going to be a lot easier to get in and out of
Yeah,
than
yeah.
your Alpha.
Every time we get into Alpha, we're like, ugh, we're old. We should get rid of that. And then we drive it, like idiots, and we're like, okay, we're keeping this,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and all they have to do is just make it a little bit of a laugh, right? Give us that motor whine, that sounds slightly lunatic, and maybe an option to turn it off and on, but don't make it fake. Don't pipe noise into the cabin like these,
right.
other cars. Don't pipe that noise into the cabin. Make it natural sounding like that.
And you know what? I feel like I feel like you need to be able to hear the motors because that does add to the experience, but
It does.
I don't think that I'd like it quite as loud as like that Ken Block video that you mentioned, which Jimmy we'll have to try to link that in the comments just so people can go or in the video description rather.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean that's bonkers, but sound is a part of the driving experience, and
if they can just do a little bit of that, right? A little bit of that, fun secret sauce that not many other electric cars have, production electric cars for that matter. I think they'll have a really winning formula, and then they won't have too much competition because the only equivalent car that has already been announced that's very similar is the Ioniq 5N, right? I don't know if you guys saw that. That was recent, and it's going to be like 70 something thousand. It's a race version of the Ioniq 5. I don't necessarily, it looks really cool. I think it's too big because the Ioniq 5 is pretty big. And this is definitely smaller. This is definitely smaller than that. So I think, that's going to be cool because I don't think there is a competitor like this yet. So
So
Did you think
so
that it
Sapan,
was? Oh no, I was
no.
going to ask about the Ionic 5 in scale to the R3. You're saying that the Ionic 5 is bigger,
bigger, yeah,
but it goes back to your comment about the stature, because even the R3, when you get into it and around it,
yeah,
it doesn't look as it's bigger than you think.
yeah. It's bigger
Um,
than you think,
right.
but it's not as long, I believe. And we'll have to pull up and compare the
It's
specs
got a
because it
little
could
booty.
also be
A
just
little booty.
imagination playing tricks. But the Ioniq 5 is like, it's a pretty sizable crossover.
It is.
And I think this is definitely shorter and wider, at least R3X.
Mhm.
And yeah, the Ioniq 5N is just, a tuned version of the Ioniq 5, and it's gonna be cool. I think it's gonna have like 500 horsepower. It's gonna have some cool features. But that's the only like competition I see in the crossover slash rally spec slash race spec, market that is coming. So
So,
Yeah.
question for you guys. I mean, do you think it's going to be enduro, or do you think it's going to be
oh yeah,
something slightly toned down for R2 and R3? Because we know the enduro motors have over 300 horsepower each.
Correct.
yeah.
So, I mean, is
I mean,
that
why wouldn't
coming
they?
up on
Yeah,
1,000 horsepower in a tri motor?
I mean,
Do you think that's what it's going to be?
I hope
I don't
so.
think that they why waste. I mean, the enduro. I think if they're baselining, let's talk about production and streamlining. I would
Yeah.
assume enduro would make the most amount of sense. I don't think that they
Yeah,
need to create another subset of a motor at this point.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, software
That
software can do magical things to hardware. So
yeah,
like,
yeah.
if you've already got a great motor that's capable of that,
yeah.
then why not at a minimum derate slightly, or I mean, or not at all. But like, I think we I don't want to say that we don't need a almost 1,000 horsepower R3,
Yeah, we
but
do.
Yes, we do.
I know,
We need a
correct.
we need
But I
a
mean,
1200 horsepower R1.
valid. Yeah,
That's
so I think it'll be enduros, off the shelf
Yeah,
enduros that
yeah.
more than likely will be derated via software. Um,
Probably
but
for like
Oh,
R3, and
don't.
then R3X it'll be
what do you
non.
want me to say? Like,
Well,
unless you get a
don't.
rocket. I got there's talks about the subscription services in the future for Rivian, and
yeah,
it could be scenarios where it could be a one-time pay to unlock more capabilities in the enduros if they go through the derated process that Jimmy is discussing. It's not off the table.
yeah.
I'd pay to
Yeah.
raise my top speed. 110 is too
So
slow.
so they've heard that, and I actually got some feedback recently that we may see something done about
Nice,
that for, and it will be geo tied in some way. But yes.
nice, nice.
But
Yeah, I
also,
mean,
too, okay,
I'm maxing out at the the one time I went on the track with like five people in the car. We were, I was like, what is this 110, 112, Let's go more.
I'm with it for the R1s, absolutely. But I will say that they did confirm R2 and R3 will have a tow hitch, right? They
Yep.
stated that. And, what's interesting is that when they staged at the reveal, when we went back at 4:30 and saw the R3X was in the front, and you saw the treehouse and some of the accessories, it did not look it looked well proportioned, right? If you look at those pictures you saw with the tent and the fact that it's going to have powered options just like the R2 where you can power your accessories. I mean, I think that it's the best of both worlds. Now, we don't know what the future is going to hold in 2 years and what that's going to do when it comes to cost and interest rates and things of that nature. But man, if they can really tie in this range of that 45, hell, I would say I would pay 50 just because of what I know that this vehicle is capable of doing for that class. And think about it, man. The average price on these vehicles, even ICE cars now, if you look at Hondas, you look at Kias, they're pricing in the $50,000 range for less, in what you're getting in vehicle. Now, I'm not promoting that, right, by saying, yeah, please keep it in the 40 to 45K range. But I think that let's be realistic too, right? Like, I think that if someone's looking at this, may be their first introduction to an electric vehicle, right? And they want something that's not overly, too big, like an R1, may not need the utilization of a pickup truck in the R1T. There's no question that R2 is going to nail that segment because it feels a little bit larger than what it is. It does. It feels larger than a Model Y. Yep. The width of it feels more spacious, and it can fit in a garage with no problem, right? You don't even probably have to fold the windows in, they pull in. I mean, I think that it's the practical vehicle that's going to sell a lot of volume. And I think that these metropolitan cities is really going to really jump on this. Like, I can really see like our market, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, huge. I can see New York, huge, right? And these are and people say that in our market there's a lot of R1s. It's still a shocker to see an R1 driving down DC, Maryland, Virginia. I mean, it's not as plentiful as what I'm saying. So, but I can see being that it factor. You're also going to pull people from Volkswagen. Like, I mean, why get an ID4 where you can get an R2? I'm just saying, like, there's going to be a lot of people looking at this and in this segment, and they're going to understand from not only from what they've experienced and what they've heard, but the energy doesn't lie. They didn't pay, and we'll put it out there, they didn't pay these influencers and these marketing press to hype this up. These people were literally stunned, shocked, amazed. I've talked to people offline. They're like, they had nothing to say. They're like, this is amazing. And I just can't wait. 2025, 2026, into 20, whatever, is going to be a phenomenal time period for Rivian.
Yeah, 2025 is going to be fun when we get to actually spec out C colors. Truly build the vehicle.
So Jimmy, do you mind if I share my screen real quick? Sure. I want to show a couple of things. So bear with me. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. All right, bear with me.
While you're doing that.
All right, so I wanted to pull this up. I think you should have it.
Yep, I've got it. Are we ready?
Yeah. Let's roll.
Let's see what happens.
Okay. So, kind of cool. Just this first one, it being the entire vehicle lineup from Rivian. So TS, R2, R3, and R3X. One of the first things that struck me is the R3 and R3X are a bit smaller than R2, but they're not tiny. They're not small.
Yeah, no.
So the other thing that I will say is that the R3X, even just scrolling through the pictures since we've been talking, and this is without seeing it in person, it's growing on me, man. Already. And
look at that.
I know. This is the other thing. The use of the cork. Yeah. And I actually like the anodized, Laguna blue or whatever metal accent. What I do not like is if this is really metal in the seats, that is bad for both cold weather and hot weather. So, I mean, a great look, but I hope practicality prevails in something like that.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
funny.
It was a hard plastic, actually. It wasn't metal.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was hard.
I think they're just having fun with the design language,
Yeah.
You and Nikki got stuck on that for like an hour on Thursday.
And if if I jumped into this car in 110-degree Texas heat, I would literally get stuck, like third-degree burn stuck to the seats. So, anyway.
Go back to the stitching. Yeah, so it's that. Yep, you can see it there. Yeah, the stitching was nice, man. The stitching was nice. The steering wheel upgrade with the rolling dials, that was exceptional. And you can see the UI. That UI is actually going to be carried through on the R2 and the R3, not just the R3X.
Right.
What's cool is that what happens is that when you attach the treehouse, which I think this one is showing it is, based on it, once it recognizes the treehouse is connected, it automatically changes the UI to reflect it in the camp mode, quote unquote, screen. So it's super intuitive.
Awesome.
That's amazing. Go ahead, Sapan.
And I think they also mentioned that UI design language is going to carry over to R1, like
in the fall. Yep, we're supposed to get some tastes of it this fall. Yep.
Yeah, and awesome. One other thing, Rashad, you mentioned the rear end of the R3 being 3D. It's something
R2 as well.
that I noticed on the R2 when I saw it in person, and the top of the logo letters actually stand up and out further, and it really kind of highlights it. It looks very cool.
You know what's interesting, Skylar? When I looked at it up close, it didn't feel like a adhesive style of badge. It felt more like a design detail. It felt like it was I felt it was at least 3 to 4 inches thick.
Oh wow!
So I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but the way it was indented and coming out in an angle, it did not look like it was an adhesive. I'm just going to add this to the exterior. This looked like this was actually a purposeful design, at least from my memory of it. And these don't really give you that justice looking at it from face on.
Yeah, I took a picture from a side angle. So it is badging, but the badging is angled and slanted, right? So it's like that. So it looks really cool. I have a really good picture of how it looks from the side. But yeah, it again looks good.
The wheel combination.
Yeah.
Forged, those look really good. And like you said, Scott, as you continue to look at it more and more, the more and more it's going to grow on you. It's going to be like, oh wow, this is cool. I don't know if you saw my text, Jimmy, but I just sent you a side by side of the R1S and the R2. I don't know if that's something you want to kind of show. I know we're talking about R3, but I think that was people wanted to kind of see like what does it look like side by side from a side profile. But yeah, if you want to use it. But it was nice. It was nice. I like that. What was the trim surrounding the dash? It was kind of like I like that gray particle looking leather. It was super nice. But it made me think about the Explorer edition.
Yep.
But more refined.
Yep.
They still have the Chili Witch.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I also noticed they're moving to kind of more of a two-tone looking interior color scheme, at least in these prototypes, which I think I like it. I think it adds some visual interest. And there's those awesome hard buttons that Jimmy was talking about.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
And a door pocket that could actually fit a 20-ounce mirror bottle straight up and down.
And two glove boxes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's all carried across.
Yeah.
And you know what else I noticed too? They reduced, and I'm a fan of this. They reduced the chrome-esque accents even in the interior.
Yeah.
So the trim around the dash, that's gone.
True. It looks like there's a little metallic looking.
You still, I'm talking about, go back to that picture, Skylar. Right there on the right, the larger trim surrounding the dash itself, where that's more of a now it's a material.
Yes.
On the where before ours, it's that chrome-esque plastic piece.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, we'll find it here. I'm working on it. And that's the one, I think it was Sapan that kind of put together that funny little, or maybe it was Manny, I'm not sure, put together that funny little like hand sketch drawing of the sun reflecting off of it and hitting his wife in the eye. Like,
It wasn't me.
dude, that was hilarious.
Yeah, I think it was Manny.
Yeah.
It may have been Manny, but all right. Well, we don't have a good shot of it there with
You see it there. At
there
the
it
top.
is.
Yeah.
There. That's the one.
Yep.
Awesome.
And I think there was a drawer in place of where the camp speaker was on the R2.
Yep.
Yeah,
Not
looked
sure
like
I,
it,
knew
yep.
I don't think they talked about it in the R3, but the R2 will be a drawer where versus the camp speaker.
Yep.
See, there's more metal on the steering wheel too that I don't think we saw.
And the door trim, the armrest area, which actually mine has rubbed off and cut me. So
Oh my.
I had that replaced.
Dang. You're a heavy leaner, man.
I mean, those turns, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Dang.
No, it's an exceptional. Those wheels are incredible. And I think they were 20s, weren't they? On the X, Sapan, weren't they 24s? I got a picture of.
On the X, I forgot what they were. Yeah, I think they were 20s.
24.
Interesting.
Now, I will say
Yeah.
about the X, I did ask a question about the rear seats. So you know the natural sitting profile in the R2, even the R1S, it's very vertical unless you lean it back, right, to a comfortable seating position.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a picture that we have of the R3, but there is like a hump on the outer left and outer right interior that bumps up right behind that seat. And so my question to them, and again, this is still a prototype, is I don't know how much decline the rear seat is going to actually have in the R3. There's really no space, at least in the prototype that we saw, where it can go back at all. It's right, it's basically right behind the seat. And you're not going to see it from that side. You can only see it from the outside looking in onto the right shoulder of, say you're on the passenger side, the right shoulder of the rear seat.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. So only on passenger. So it's not this, but just on the other side.
It's so where your cursor is, you move it forward and over to the right. So the outer side of that seat, there's a hump there. I don't know if that's the rear well that's coming up, but it's right there on your shoulder. So what I'm saying is that I don't think you're going to have the ability to decline in the second row in the R3 as much as you can in an R2 and an R1 because it's obstructed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, maybe not as far, but it looks like
it was on it. And I even asked, I said, "Hey, will you be able to decline?" And they were like, "Well, we're not sure yet. This is a prototype." So I kind of pushed off. I fell off of that question, but it didn't look like there was any room for it to angle back. And if it's the case, then those second row seats are very upright.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm sure that is something I feel pretty confident that's something that they'd address before production. But who knows? I mean, we've still got a couple of years, guys. So
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
But exciting nonetheless. I mean, I think that any investor, like I said on the previous video, me being one of them, this really, really fortified, the longevity plan financially for Rivian for my pockets, right? I've been a day one. I've been averaging down consistently, and to see the roadmap, down through 2028 is super promising, and I'm very bullish on it. So I thought that introducing the R3 definitely helped the investor profile, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think doing what they're doing now with this roadshow for R2, I would love to see them, maybe not right away do R3, but no later than like next year start doing a roadshow with R3 and like continue to build hype.
Yeah.
Something that I think with some of the moves that Rivian has made in their C-suite have pushed to make happen, like Rivian showing up to the Concours Elegance in Amelia this past year, which is the first time it ever entered. You know, to do again, doing, you know, going to South by Southwest in Austin where you saw the R2 Skyler. I don't think that probably would have happened as quickly as it did if it weren't for I'm gonna screw his name up. The guy they brought over from Porsche.
Yeah, well, it's just smart business in all honesty. I mean, you want to get it out there, you want to get eyeballs on it, you want to get press coverage on it. There's a lot of positives, and yeah, they're already building up that demand for something that we won't see for 2 years. So it's a good thing for them from a business perspective.
Yeah, and they already gave Jason Camisa a ride, or I think they actually gave him the R3X to drive.
I didn't see that, and I love the stuff that he does. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll make a few even more functioning prototypes and just let people have at it. That'd be awesome.
That would be amazing because that I enjoy, again, like you said, Skyler, I enjoy Jason Camisa's stuff, man. They're
top notch.
Great. Yeah, for sure.
And funny. Yeah.
They're good.
all the things.
Yeah. All right.
Well, guys, we went over once again. Sapan, I know you have to run. So thanks again for joining us. And yeah, we'll have to do it, have both of you guys on individually or together on a regular basis. Just
It's
just to keep you in the mix.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us.
I'm a Rivian Stories OG, man. So I really appreciate it. I think it goes out saying, but Jimmy, Skyler, man, we just want to appreciate y'all for holding it down, continue to allow the forum to strive and allow people like Sapan and myself to continue to represent wherever we are as we expand into the RCA side and still maintain our presence in Rivian Stories. So kudos to you all. And shouts out to Kyle too, man. You guys are the OGs. We appreciate you all allowing us to have this forum so we can talk and share this energy with the people, man. So thank you.
That's what it's all about.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
See, I stayed on this time.